still fired up over the All-Star thing and Paul Skeens and sweeping the White Sox and, oh man, I'm about to douse that big time. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins, the same place that you found this. It's actually not an opinion on my part. It's not skewed to the negative or anything like that. It's the schedule. It's what they have coming up. Let me start with this. Per one mathematical formula that was put out yesterday, the Pirates have the 8th most difficult schedule from here until the end of the season of any team in Major League Baseball. And I thought, when I saw that, I guess it seems plausible. It feels like they've been playing a lot of better teams lately, but maybe that's just because they went through Milwaukee and before that played the Mets and whatever. But all right, so I tapped the Major League Baseball app and I opened up the schedule. And oh boy, have you looked at this? Have you looked at what they're doing? The next 9 series the Pirates play, the first 9 out of the break, are against opponents with winning records. All of them have winning records. That begins this weekend, of course, with the Phillies, Major League Baseball's very best team, by a pretty broad margin, I might add. They're coming in this weekend, and they will come in with something, I don't want to call it a home field advantage, but something of an advantage in the sense that the entire first base side is going to be decked out in red. That's how it always happens, especially when these teams meet on a weekend. So you have the Phillies. After that, you have the Cardinals, a team against whom the Pirates are going theoretically head-to-head for a wild card spot. You have the Diamondbacks, who fit the same category. The Astros, the Diamondbacks again, the Padres, the Dodgers, the Padres again, and then the Mariners. And I'm leaving out here, and I shouldn't, that this span also includes some of the longest, ugliest travel of the summer because they're heading out to Arizona, and then they're making a separate trip to go back out to the West Coast for those series in LA and San Diego. And yikes, and double yikes. That is a lot of challenging baseball in a tight time span, and oh, by the way, it'll run right into and through the trade deadline on July 30th. So, where this conversation invariably ends up going is how does that impact what Ben Cherington wants to do? My position on that is that it doesn't impact what he wants to do because we all know what he actually wants to do, which is nothing. Maybe that's because, and we've heard him talk about this sort of thing publicly, his internal analytics people have told him this season is a waste, don't worry about it, don't fuss over it, don't be giving up too much no matter what kind of public pressure you get. Or, and we have heard Cherington talk about this as well in public, he'll look at the schedule and he will say in advance, well, it looks like we're going to lose a bunch of those. Or if it seems lighter, it looks like we'll win a bunch of those. You see baseball when you watch it. He sees formulas. He sees integers. And he sees, to a large extent, things just kind of leveling themselves out via luck and or the odds. So if the schedule that I just read off to you is something that scares him even a little bit, meaning that he thinks they'll lose a bunch of those games, then all he has to do to achieve his wish, and I do genuinely believe this is his wish. It's not a criticism. It's not a shot. It's not some kind of stab in the back or whatever. I believe this is what he wants. He wants to be able to arm this team up for 2025. And along the way, even if he does go and get something, he doesn't want to have to give up anything to get it. And that even includes money because he's got a better argument to spend money in 2025 in his head than he does in 2024. So what has to happen here? Well, the obvious. The Pirates, meaning the ones who take the field and play the games, have to win. They don't necessarily have to go sweeping teams. We've seen that that's a problem, and there are no White Sox in this span. But they've got to find a way to keep their heads above water. They got to find a way to stay in the wild card race. I think, and this is just an opinion, that they would have to stay somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 games out of the wild card spot. What you can't do is have some sort of prolonged slump, or even if you play well, a prolonged string of losing to better teams. They have to keep performing as they have for the better part of the past couple weeks. Or the GM gets his wish and poof, there it goes. Can gets kicked. When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q isn't really a question, it's a comment that comes from Dennis, who says, DK, thanks for telling the truth about Bob Nutting and his very real efforts to retain some of the Pirates' homegrown talent. The storyline that he doesn't is intellectually dishonest, and it's grounded in laziness. Dennis, I feel like it's both fair and reasonable to be able to say, whether it's me or anybody, that this is a bad owner for this franchise, really for this league. Nutting is not good at owning a sports franchise. Nutting is not good for baseball anywhere. Never mind Pittsburgh. Baseball is a better overall sport when it has more competitive owners. For the simple reason that you have more competitive teams and therefore more competitive games and a more competitive overall product. And I can say that while at the same time citing facts. Actually, I happen to think that it strengthens an argument when you use facts, whichever way those facts happen to go. You don't have to cherry pick them. You can say all of the facts and still reach the conclusion that I just shared with you. So if you want Nutting to sell the team, and I'm sure the overwhelming majority of this fan base does, and rightly so, you're probably best served by not saying things out loud that are flat out incorrect. Because it doesn't help your cause, it hurts your cause. You give them, meaning the Pirates or the people who support or defend the Pirates' way of doing business, ammunition that really isn't needed. So when I go through the list, as I have over the past couple episodes, of players the Pirates have retained, young players retained through their arbitration years and a year or two into free agency, and I come up with all those names, none of that's an opinion. And yet, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, I had somebody reach out to me and say, oh, you sound like you're talking down to your listeners or something. No, these are facts that are available to you too. Just look them up. I'm not anybody special in this regard. This isn't inside information. The only thing that I shared that would have come across as inside information is why they didn't get Jay Happ signed a few years ago, and that was through conversations that I had with Happ's agent at the time. But that's it. Everything else is right there for you. You're one Google search away from finding this stuff out yourself. There are areas in which Nutting's been a good steward of the franchise. They don't outnumber the bad ones, but there are areas. And this, the retention of key young players into their free agency years, happens to be one of them. It also gets almost universally ignored. If you think about it, my goodness, I mean, do you remember the fuss over Brian Reynolds before he got signed, it was like the city was going to explode if it didn't happen. And then it did happen, and then there was just silence. And from there, it takes only a matter of months before the same narrative comes up again. And then Mitch Keller gets signed. Same thing, silence. And then another month or two later, everybody starts spouting off again about how the Pirates never keep their young guys into their free agency years, when in fact, that's one of the very few things they've done well and commendably from an ownership standpoint. But honestly, you can't win if you're in this role. I got a really long letter from a longtime reader yesterday that said they were quitting our website. They were canceling because everything I've been saying about the Pirates is too negative. Like 24 hours after I got something that was exactly the opposite. Guys, I'm not overthinking any of this, and I'm not trying to look down from Mount Olympus at the peasants whenever I speak about this stuff. I'm just sharing what I know. I don't have another way to do that without just trying to tell you the truth. I appreciate the question. Well, it wasn't really a question, but I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Pirates, and we will have another one tomorrow.